Hola, mujeres. This is Marianne from Unapologetically. And today we are going to discuss fear and self love. And you might be thinking, really? Is it connected? I can assure you it is. And today we're going to break down a few different categories regarding fear and self love. I want you to tune in and chime in the chat to tell me what you think. And then today, what I'm going to try to do too is invite you if you want to come live with me so we can have a little discussion on it. So, right now, tune in, sit back, hope you have a little cafecito, and let's join in on the conversation. All right, welcome back, ladies. So I'm going to actually make sure that we are on all channels because what I did realize last week is that Facebook and stuff. I'm live on Facebook and Instagram, and Facebook changed their requirements as far as when you can go live. So I'm live on Transforming Hearts PLLC, and if you guys, for some of you that don't know, I am the owner of Transforming Hearts PLLC, the talk therapy and wellness retreat, and Unapologetically is one of those services that I offer, the self-love movement for women. And so until I get 100 followers on the Unapologetically page, I can't go live, so I am making sure that you guys at least have access to it for the ones that did actually like and follow the page. So make sure you like and follow the Unapologetically Facebook page just as well, so I can make sure I can go live on there too. So let's tune into that, as well as I'm going to put it for the private group, because the private group, as you may or may not know, we have a Unapologetically private group for ladies to discuss some of these things just as well. So, in a little bit more private manner, because sometimes we need that, right? Sometimes we need a little privacy. So what I'm doing right now is putting in the chat an invite, just in case you want to come live with me as well and have a little chit chat. If you don't, that's fine. But put your comments in the feed so that way I can bring them up, any questions that you may have. Today, we are talking about fear and self-love. As a therapist, I have several discussions with females in particular about fears. And it's not to say that men don't also have fears, right? We all have fears, and sometimes it's hard to unmask what those fears are. But when you start diving into yourself, learning how to become a little bit more vulnerable, you start realizing, oh, I do have some things that are blocking me from experiencing the wholeness of self-love. Now, in my first guided journal, Unapologetically Me, I talk about blockages of self-love, and two of those are one of them are fear, the other one is anger, right? And so sometimes that fear, and there's different categories when it relates to that. So I'm gonna break some of those down for you today, so we can have a little chit chat about it. So what is fear, right? Fear is something that prevents you from sometimes making the next step, right? That's obviously not the Webster definition of it, but fear is that debilitating emotion, or possibly debilitating emotion, that causes your body to kind of startle and be like, wait, what are we doing here, right? It creates a response for your body. And so that alert system that you have in your body can also say, do we proceed? Do we go? Or let's do this, but just know that this part of fear is sitting here, and I'm very much so there. So oftentimes when I speak to my clients or anybody, I say sometimes you just got to walk with the fear, right? Know that it's present in there. It's not going to go away. And yet, as you continue walking with it, then your fear starts maybe settling up a little bit, because it's like, hey, now I kind of see, and maybe it's not so bad. But fear is kind of like your alert system. And which is a good thing because it'll let you kind of know, should we involve ourselves in something or should we be a little bit more cautious? So, what does it have to do with self-love? Well, think about it. When we think about empowering yourself, good morning. When you think about trying to empower yourself and becoming more vulnerable and understanding the love that you have for your own self, right? And it's not that, some people are like, oh my gosh, you love yourself. No, it's deeper than that. It's about understanding yourself. It's about getting to know those parts of you that you may not even you don't want to see, that you want to reject because they feel so vulnerable, or they feel so raw. So for you, it's just about getting to know those parts, understanding they're there, and trying to nurture it. Sometimes what that fear and self-love does is say, you know what, I'm afraid to kind of go ahead, especially when whoever I talk to, that I speak a lot about energy and the energy that you put out there and where that energy might be at and leading you, right? Following your intuition or that energy oftentimes leads you in alignment with the things that for this lifetime you very much so should be following, right? Oftentimes we don't follow it because we're often resisting what's in our alignment, and because we've gotten so comfortable in a different path, right? And oftentimes people fear change. That's one of the categories, right? People fear change. If this is how their life was going, why would I want it any other way? Because I'm very comfortable here. This is what I'm familiar with. When you're a child, depending how you grew up, there are some people that have there everybody experiences something, right? Some traumas are more severe than others. And not to say, oh, to compare at all, right? But they're depending on what you have experienced, you might be familiar with that, and to you that might be normalized. So in your world, your path may be leading in that direction even as you get to be an adult, unless you are trying to heal, right? And so how do you unlearn some of those things? Well, if you feel like if everything in your energy path is showing you the same thing, you're going to think that's life. You're going to think that's normal. You with me? So changing that, doing something outside of that is going to create fear because you don't know what's on the other side. If this is bad in itself, if this is potentially bad in itself, why would I want to do anything else where I do not know what it looks like? So that brings fear. Even if my life wasn't that bad, but I've gained so much in this life and it feels good, but there's something telling me that this isn't it. My fear might be of the change to say, I might need to leave behind the things that I've I've gained and that I feel so good about, but for some reason it just doesn't feel in alignment. There's a part of me that is just not happy and I need to change something. But if I change, is it going to get better or is it going to be worse than I already have? Right? So we fear that change because we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know. So why change anything at all? It prevents us from fully changing and sometimes going into our alignment, because that also means we have to trust that things are going to be okay. Fear of judgment, the second one. Fear of judgment. Whether we make the change, um, whether we're talking to our network, our friends, our family about some things, about maybe how we're feeling at the time in the moment, our fear is of being judged. We don't want to be judged for being honest, which can relate back to our vulnerability and us being vulnerable and opening up and sharing our feelings with people. Um, because now it's like, well, I feel judged. I feel like I need to make this change, but I'm not sure because everybody's used to me in this particular setting. They know me as this. And if I change to something else, will they judge me for it? Does that resonate with anybody so far? If it does, type in yes. Um, if you have an example, let us share that with us just as well. It's really hard going into self-love and understanding empowering yourself when there is so much that possibly would change, right? Because now you're going to grow more awareness of the people around you. You're going to grow more awareness of yourself and what that might entail. It may require you to change. It also will bring on certain judgments from other people who may be taking advantage of our change, right? Or advantage of who we were. And now that we want to change into something different, there's going to be judgment coming off of that because people rather you stay the same because it is easier and comfortable for them. Sometimes you may reflect like a mirror to them just as well. So I often say that the partner that you have may be a reflection on you because oftentimes your partner may be able to see certain things that you have been avoiding and they may bring that up and trigger that, right? A safe partner, a healthy partner is going to bring that up kind of in a secure way, in a safe way, and allow you to become vulnerable and open up about that, right? A person who is not safe and unhealthy will make you feel even more insecure about that. So keep that in mind. This is also where we get the judgment and the fear of change, right? All of this brings up fears. So the next part, fear of worthlessness. Am I good enough? Am I worthy? Do I have that ability to really love myself? Do I? And these are things that kind of get brought up whenever you are diving into your self love. These are oftentimes things that I hear women talk about is, am I good enough for that? Am I worthy? Do I actually deserve um, that love? And I will often hear women want to be in relationships. We want to be in relationships. We want to be in a loving relationship. And the tough question I ask them is, are you ready for that healthy, loving relationship? And how are you going to show that person how you want to be loved if you don't know what that looks like for yourself? You haven't even experienced your own self love to know what you like and what you don't like, right? I'm going to put on my light a little bit. So, is that better? I think that's better. All right. Forgot about that. Experience your own self-love. Take yourself out. Do different things. Find a hobby. Find things that you're interested in, right? Because when you start doing that, you start understanding how you want love yourself. What feels good to you, what doesn't feel good to you. It shouldn't be up to another person to kind of dictate or say what you like and what you don't like. It doesn't make sense because this is how oftentimes you become that shows at times that you're a people pleaser, right? That you'll just do whatever anybody else wants you to do because it feels good to them. And then you're losing that part of yourself that says, you know what, maybe I don't like that, right? But I like this instead. Oftentimes, partners are trying to see what you like and how can they really get to know you if you don't know what you like yourself. That is part of self love. That is part of also feeling worthy. I am worthy of these things. And here's how I know that because I've done it myself. I know what feels good to me. I know what is of value to me. So these are the things that are very much so important. And I want my partner, anybody, friend, anybody in life to recognize that when it comes to myself, right? I am worthy of these things. I am good enough to have that. So, unless you really dive in and understand how worthy you are and that you are good enough, you're going to have that fear that's going to constantly block you from fully loving yourself, because there's this mantra that you have, or this negative core belief that you have ingrained in you. There's so many people that I meet that are beyond worthy. Everybody is beyond worthy. And somehow they overdo and overcompensate for everyone else besides themselves. They overly give, and then what they receive is an emotional beating. And what I mean by that is emotional abuse. They have people taken advantage of. There are no boundaries that are being set up, because when you don't believe that you are worth it, you will take anything from anybody, but then you would overcompensate for that because you're trying to make them see or prove to other people that you are worthy. Sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about your circle and what they see, because you are not advocating and setting your boundaries. The moment you set up your boundaries on the people that are taking advantage of you, you will lose them. Which goes to the next part, right? That fear of rejection, the fear of losing people. Because when you are on your self-love journey, you will lose people, because some people will not appreciate that you are finding yourself and you are finding your voice. People who are in a different energy space, or what they typically call, if you, and I'm sure you've heard of it, low vibrational people, oftentimes succeed when they have pulled someone into their vibration, into their energy space, that make them feel comfortable, right? Oftentimes when I meet people like that, I often feel drained. I'm just like, oof, can't, I shut down. My energy space ends up shutting down, and I can't even be bothered by it, because it's so draining to me that you cannot pull me down. My energy field blocks it out, can't deal with it. I'm moving on. But that's after being in an old relationship that pulled me down time and time again. And then I had to learn, like, what is this feeling? And at that time I didn't realize what the feeling was, but I was overcompensating a lot. I was trying to prove that I was worthy. I was trying to prove that I can do this and I can be better. And then I realized nothing was ever going to be good enough. It was never going to be good enough. And so after leaving that energy space and sitting back from the outside, I realized, oh, wow, I'm not the type of person that can be brought into that energy space. And then when I am, or when I was pulled in and it was draining me. But again, at the time, I was so used to it because I was overcompensating. When I got out, anything now, I cannot be pulled and sucked back in, because my energy space completely blocks it. I withdraw and I say, nope, not today, not ever. And I walk away. I can't be bothered by it. So your energy will eventually do that when you get yourself out of it and see it from an observation lens. And that's what I like to call it, the observation lens. I'm observing, I'm seeing, and then I can even feel the energy, and it doesn't like it, block, and I continue moving forward, right? That fear of rejection is real for a lot of people. And because they don't want to be rejected, and if you have abandonment trauma, the reality is that that will trigger it. Because I know I'm going to lose people, and I have a fear of being abandoned, I'm going to stay exactly where I am, because this is bringing up exactly what I don't want. I don't want to be abandoned. So how can I abandon you? Is that making sense? So now, I know this is getting deep, but now we have that fear of rejection. So oftentimes we stop we stop ourselves from reaching that next level or that next energy space because we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to lose people that we've grown so comfortable with, despite the fact that they might be unhealthy and we know it. Oftentimes, we are aware that they're unhealthy for us. There obviously sometimes we're not aware, especially if this has been normalized. But once we gain awareness to it, you're not going to unsee it. You're not going to unknow it. You're going to very much so know it. And it's probably going to feel worse for you because now that you know it, now it's going to feel worse because you know it's happening. You see it happening and you feel stuck as if you cannot move or budge. Right? So if this resonate with you, let me know in the chats. So now that you have this fear of rejection, you feel like it's hard to overcome and you almost feel defeated. Like, no, I cannot continue. This is not where I want to be, but this is where I feel stuck. So oftentimes people stay where they're at because they don't know how to proceed forward, right? Fear of responsibility. Sometimes people have this fear of responsibility. And what I mean by that is you don't want to take accountability for your own actions and choices. You don't want to take accountability for your own actions and your choices. Why? Why would that be such a fear? Because the reality is if I'm choosing myself and I am going in a path that's different than where I was, then again, people who are taking advantage of us are going to blame us for the choices that we're making. They're going to make it seem as this is the wrong choice, you're messing up, you're ruining things, da da da. And if you don't feel confident enough in yourself, it's going to make you feel low, especially when you start losing people, especially when your life starts changing. It might feel a little worse before it gets better because you're going to go through a grieving process. Through that grief, you're going to heal and unlearn some of the old baggage that you had, and you will see the light. You will be moving and transitioning to that different energy space where it's going to feel so freeing. All these things are going to feel like they're bogging you down and they feel like a burden. But once you get into that space and you're grieving, you're healing, you're understanding more, you're learning, you're empowering yourself more, is going to feel so freeing. But most people can't see that. So because they cannot see that, they're fearful if it's even going to happen, right? So what do you do with all this information? Number one, it's about knowing it, right? Becoming more aware, understanding that fear is attached to self-love, right? But it's also saying there are things that I can do to acknowledge that fear, right? We want to acknowledge the fear when it comes on, and we want to learn how to walk with that fear, even if it's step by step. Ask your fear, what is exactly is it fearful of? Maybe they bring up one of these categories, right? Maybe they bring up one of these things. And then after you do that, you want to say, you know what? I'd like to get over there, but I'm going to need your help. I think you can help me with that. You know what? I'm pretty sure you can help me with that. So if you don't mind, maybe we don't have to go all the way over there today. But what if you and I get together and take a step by step once a day? Each day we try to get to a certain marker to move past this part, whatever that is. Whatever you acknowledge that to be today, where you're having a hard time getting through, acknowledge that. Let's get past this part today. How about that? Does that sound good? Sound scary? I know. I'm a little scared too. I think that's okay. And then you take it and you move on forward. Now, it might sound weird to kind of talk to yourself, but this is how you start learning how to accept each and every part that you have. This is how you start nurturing those parts of you that feel so vulnerable. Because if not you, right? These are things that you can start doing in order to address these fears. Allow yourself to take a deep breath in and out in order to take in that fear and breathe it out and allow yourself to go slowly towards your next goal in life. Do not allow fear to block you from what you are most aligned with, because you might be blocking yourself from your own peace and happiness. All change is not bad. In fact, evolving as a human should be required. This is Marianne from Unapologetically, and I hope you all have a great day. Next week, I will be taking the women on the self-healing Unapologetically retreat in Puerto Rico. And I believe we can tune in from there just as well. So I hope you all tune in and see what we got going on. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Take it easy.